They laughed when the janitor walked into the boardroom, until he pulled out the paperwork that gave him control of the entire company. You ever walk past someone so often that they start to disappear into the background? That was Leonard B. Walker at Greystone Systems. Every day, just after 6 a.m., he'd roll into the lot in an old navy blue 97 Toyota Tacoma with a dented bumper and park way in the back behind Building E. He'd clock in before the sun was up, before most even poured their first cup of coffee. No one asked why he parked so far. Most folks didn't even notice he existed. Tall, lean, and 68 years old, Leonard wore the same slate gray coveralls every day. The patch on his chest said facilities, though over the years, the stitching had frayed so much it just read FSC. Some of the warehouse guys called him Lenny. A few of the older engineers said Mr. Walker with a smirk, but most just thought of him as the janitor. Never cruelly, never kindly, just indifferently. New hires out of grad school, executives in tailored suits, tech consultants with perfect teeth, they walked past Leonard like he was invisible. He didn't seem to mind. He went about his job in silence, pushing his rolling bin floor to floor, humming low under his breath. Gospel hymns, mostly old Mahalia Jackson or the Soul Stirrers. Nobody could tell you where he lived. No one knew who his people were or how long he'd worked there. But Leonard had been at Greystone longer than all of them, before the cafe, the rooftop garden, the smart badge scanners, the corporate retreats in Aspen. Back when Greystone was still 3 guys and a dog building firewall prototypes in an abandoned gas station on the outskirts of Montgomery, Alabama. He was there before their first million, before their name was etched into Silicon Valley pitch decks, before the logo was on trade show lanyards across 4 continents. And still, every morning, Leonard pushed his trash bin, changed light bulbs, and polished the tile floors like he was scrubbing his own home. Then came the second Tuesday in March. That morning, Greystone's freshly minted CEO, Damian Chase, made his inaugural visit to headquarters. A clean-cut 30-something with a penchant for buzzwords and custom cufflinks. He stood atop the mezzanine, backed by glossy slides and artificial enthusiasm. A sleek smile carved into his face, he preached about streamlining, optimizing, eliminating inefficiencies. That included facilities. A few glances darted toward the back of the atrium where Leonard stood, arms crossed. He said nothing, just listened. After the meeting, Leonard went about his usual rounds. He emptied the conference room bins, restocked the washrooms, and scrubbed the hallway outside the secure server room. Everything the same, except when he paused outside a wall-mounted photograph in the 3rd-floor corridor. It was from 1984, a group photo outside the original Greystone workspace. Just 5 people. One of them was Leonard. Younger, fuller hair, bigger smile. Standing beside his friend, Marcus Green, the company's original founder, long deceased. Someone had written under the picture in marker, where it all started. Funny, no one noticed the man in the coveralls now had once stood beside the founder. That night, long after everyone had left, Leonard walked to a dusty file room few remembered. Inside, buried in an old steel drawer, sat a thick manila folder labeled Greenwalker Agreement. He pulled it free, careful, reverent. The contents were old but intact, and binding. He left the room quietly. The next morning, he didn't say a word, but he walked differently. Not fast, not proud, just ready. In 1985, when Greystone was a wild dream between 2 night-shift electronics workers who bonded over Coltrane records and late-night diner coffee, Leonard Walker wasn't a janitor. He was the architect, the engineer, the quiet hand behind the code that protected a dozen Alabama banks from their first wave of cyber threats. Marcus Green was the charisma, the voice, the pitchman. Leonard was the structure, the logic, the roots. They built Greystone together in a borrowed garage with 2 PCs, a whiteboard, and a $500 loan. By 1993, they landed their first federal contract. Leonard wrote the security shell nearly alone. But when the venture capitalists came, with titles, agendas, and metrics, Leonard began to fade from view. He didn't fight it. He never liked meetings, never liked the spotlight. He let Marcus handle the noise, until the day a stroke hit him mid-conversation over coffee. When he returned, Marcus had passed. The company had grown beyond recognition. Leonard asked for a job in facilities. People called it tragic, said he lost everything. They didn't know the truth. Before Marcus died, He and Leonard signed an old-school agreement, notarized, stamped, and buried in analog. It gave Leonard controlling interest in the company if Greystone ever drifted from its founding purpose: to protect, not exploit. That Tuesday, the drift had become a flood. Payroll moved bonuses offshore, while junior dev teams were downsized. Education programs scrapped for military contracts. AI integration projects were greenlit to replace live support staff. Leonard saw it all. He heard it all. Because no one filtered themselves around the janitor. That Thursday at 9:02 a.m., the board gathered in the top floor's sleek glass room. Damian Chase stood at the head, ready to unveil Phase 2 of his 5-year plan. Budget cuts, automation, a culture reset. At 9:04, the door opened. Leonard walked in. He carried the old manila folder like a sacred object. At first, there were chuckles. Quiet, smug. Then Denise Abbott, VP of Product, said, "Sir, this is a closed session." Damian smirked. Did someone call maintenance? Leonard laid the folder on the table. No words. No theatrics. "I co-founded this company," he said evenly. "With Marcus. In a garage. Before any of y'all had your first business cards." They blinked. Whispered. A few laughed nervously. He opened the folder and spread the documents. Founding paperwork. Patent records. A signed letter from Marcus Green. An original controlling interest clause, triggered in the event of ethical misconduct. "You've breached every line," Leonard said, tapping the agreement. "I've been quiet. I've listened. But you don't get to erase history just because it's inconvenient." One of the board members skimmed the papers, then paled. This is real." Leonard nodded. "I'm invoking my rights." Effective immediately, Damian exploded. "You're hijacking my company." Leonard didn't flinch. "You hijacked it the moment you stopped protecting the people we built this for." Silence. He pulled out a second stack. Emails, budgets, contracts with defense firms Marcus once refused. A full audit. You sold out values for valuations. You silenced ethics for earnings. That ends today. The legal team whispered furiously. One checked with the Secretary of State's office. The agreement was valid. No expiration. No overrides. Leonard pointed to a pinhole camera on his collar. "This meeting's recorded. Live stream to my legal team." By 10:47 a.m., Damian Chase left the building. By 6 p.m., the first wave of resignations hit. Leonard didn't take the CEO's suite. He reopened Marcus's old office. Same desk. Same broken chair. He wore new navy blue coveralls. No name tag. But people saw him now. He appointed people who'd been ignored: warehouse leads, QA testers, community outreach managers, to leadership roles. Restored community contracts. Cut predatory software lines. Launched ethical review boards. When asked why he did it, Leonard always said the same thing. It's not about power. It's about responsibility. 6 months later, he stepped down. Appointed a new team, diverse, homegrown, principled. He still showed up every morning. Still checked light bulbs. Still sipped his coffee from the same old mug. And when someone asked, "Isn't that the janitor?" the answer was always the same. No, that's Leonard Walker. He's the reason this place still stands.